Hey everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about roles and permissions. As a Knowi admin, you can control and configure the level of access each user in your workspace is able to, and rather how they're able to interact with the workspace, down from the assets such as the dashboards, widgets, charts, and queries or data sources, and as well how each user interacts and the level of access. For instance, you might have a user who's only able to view dashboards and widgets, but not have access to the queries and data sources. Now, before we get started on this, just a quick reminder that all information can be found on the documentation at docs.knowi.com, and if you go into the onto the documentation site, you can simply search roles and permissions, and there will be a handful of information around there to guide you with that, from creating custom roles to the default user roles and groups and such. But for now, let's jump into the platform and get it hands-on in what this looks like. Uh, so once you're logged in as an admin user, from going into the settings and user settings, you are presented with a handful of options and things, and so from there you can see the list of users on your workspace, and most importantly, control the level of access that each user can is provided with and how they are guided through the platform. Off the bat, there are three default systemic roles that comes off the shelf, which are admin, user, and viewer roles. And as you can see on this left side, the three roles are listed, and they are identified as a boolean of system true, which means that this essentially gets you started up and running. And so with little to no overhead, you could start categorizing your users based on the level of access needed. Now, something worth mentioning, as you probably saw on the bottom here, with the system false, these are some custom roles that has been created. And to do that, it's simply going into create new role, and you can give this a particular name. For instance, if this is a role that is specific for third-party vendors, we can just call that vendor roles, vendor users perhaps. And let's say this level of users are only allowed to view assets and not make any changes, or rather see or even see the underlying data source or queries. So one thing you can do this is, as you can tell from this, is you have a list of options from the tabs to select the level of interaction that user is able to see or interact with. For this, let's say this user can only see a list of dashboards, perhaps can clone it, cannot delete it, and can edit the dashboard, and the same for the widgets. So we only want to provision access to being able to see the items, and perhaps create dashboards and reports, but not provision access to the underlying data query, the data source sections we're going to leave blank, and as well the other custom information. So that way we could really with a fine-grained control, identify and lock down how each user interacts with the platform. Let's save this and see this in full live action. So after saving, we could go back to our teams page. So this is our newly created role, vendor users, and you can see what's available within that category of roles. And now let's apply that role to a new user that we've created. So let's go to the user and change the role from a admin role to a vendor role. Now, saving this, created this user and logged into the other side. So what we're going to see is might need to do a quick log out and log back into this. So logging in as the other user, we will now see the recent changes. So from what we've done earlier, if you remember, this user has a role of vendors, and the vendor role, just a quick refresher, can only clone a dashboard, edit, and see list of dashboards and for widget as well, similar behaviors. They do not have access to the data source or queries or other information presented. So if we go back into this user, we can see that the tabs for data source and queries has been disabled for this user, based on what has been configured here. So this user is only able to view dashboards and without making edits to it. or creating a new dashboard rather. And the same goes for the widgets as well. So they can create a new widget because we provisioned access for that. But that's otherwise they aren't allowed to do anything else beyond that. And similar goes for the settings. The user is not able to configure that again, just because we have disabled that from here. And we can always go back and edit this role and say, let's provision the user access to the queries. If I could find that, so this user can see the list of queries, and perhaps can do a clone and a create. And let's save this and quickly logging out and re-logging back in with the same user. The changes will have taken effect. So as we see here now, the query section is now available. And if we go into the queries, the user should now be able to see the list of queries that has been shared to them, and as well as the early access of being able to provision a dashboard or widgets, but not the underlying data source. So just to quickly recap on this, so as you can see, this is a very powerful resource to really fine-grain and nail down the level of access your users within your workspace has, and down to each individual component from the dashboard to widgets and the various assets there, and as well the level of access within each dashboard, within each assets, and control behind that. Again, for more information around this, do check out the documentation, which goes in more details and some examples around how to customize your user roles and your user permissions, and as well as tying custom roles and permissions to a set of users and groups as well.
For more information on how to get the best out of Knowi, please visit knowi.com/university. Thanks for watching and see you next time.